We've seen a significant increase in the number of requests for various appraisal services, often where the appraiser completes the appraisal from the desktop where the inspection or other physical information is provided by a third party. Not long ago, I was consulting with investigators on an enforcement issue. The chief investigator had asked me to look at a restricted appraisal that was on a Fannie Mae form, where the form called for 3 comparable sales to be identified, but no adjustments were required in this particular form, but with a brief paragraph at the end describing the differences where the appraiser reported his opinion of value. Apparently, the appraisal had been submitted by an unhappy property owner, where the report was completed for a lender who ordered the appraisal for an equity loan. The investigator had not seen this type of appraisal report and was concerned that the appraisal violated USPAP because no adjustments were made to the comparable sales on the appraisal report form. We reviewed the reporting requirements under USPAP Standard 2, where the investigator realized that a restricted report did not require the sales to be identified in the report, nor adjustments be provided in a restricted appraisal report. It did require certain elements that were not found in the Fannie Mae form or its certification, such as highest and best use, prior services, exposure time, which would be needed in order for the appraisal report to comply with the reporting standards under USPAP. In the end, the appraiser ended up being sanctioned primarily because the workfile was deficient in providing the elements that were developed in Standard 1 for analysis and were not reported in Standard 2, but were to be retained in the appraiser's work file. They weren't there. We often have clients offering these so-called desktop appraisals, where the claim is that the appraisal can be completed within 20 to 40 minutes. Often the solicitations that we've received have offered fees anywhere from $25 to $75, in some cases a little more. The claim is that the billing price per hour is higher than on a traditional appraisal. I have talked to appraisers who claim they've been able to complete 10 of these assignments a day and have been able to make it a profitable venture for them. But I've not been able to verify the quality of the appraisal product or if the claims of the volume is accurate or not. Now, to be clear, this video is not about fees and some of the issues associated with fees. First and foremost, filling out the appraisal form is not completing the appraisal. It is only conveying the results of the work that was performed in Standard 1. When a client tells me I can fill out a form in a certain amount of time, keep in mind that I'm only doing half of the appraisal work. I still need to perform all of the required steps identified in Standard 1. We're going to identify a few tips if you're going to be involved in some of these non-traditional or alternative appraisal products that may help keep you from having problems. First, make sure that the form the client has requested has at least the minimum items identified in the form to comply with Standard 2. If it does not, make sure that the form will allow alterations or additions so that your report can be made to comply. If the form does not allow for alteration and it does not allow you to report required items to comply with Standard 2, don't accept the assignment. Number 2, make sure you keep a work file with the signed certification along with all of your data and analysis that was used in developing your opinion of value. The form is filled out online. Make sure that you can retrieve the report as needed in the future. Preferably put a copy of any work that you produce to a client along with your data and analysis in a work file that you can access and control. I worry about completing appraisal reports that are filled out online and retained or stored by the client or another third party. What happens if I get locked out of the system, the company goes out of business, or some other circumstance where I can't access the appraisal report along with the other associated information that I produced in performing the appraisal? Best practice would be to keep a copy in a file that you control. Another issue in dealing with desktop appraisals is the veracity of the data source for the subject property when provided by a third-party inspector. This is a hot issue as many clients accept information being provided by nearly any third party. The appraiser who uses the information has some responsibility as to the veracity and reliability of that data that is being provided. While an extraordinary assumption may be used when relying on information provided by third parties, the appraiser must have reason to believe that the information being provided is reliable and accurate. Keep in mind that we use third-party data all the time where the appraiser develops opinions about the property. Most of the comparable sales obtained from the MLS involve information provided by a third party. The subject comparables are rated on the basis of age, condition, and other characteristics in order to make adjustments for those differences. I'm not sure that third party for the subject is significantly different, but the appraiser must be concerned because there is likely to be a higher risk of a complaint, particularly where the information being provided about the subject property is incorrect. In performing the sales comparison analysis, the appraiser still needs to have a reasonable analysis completed to reflect the differences between the subject property and the comparable sales, such as location, age, size, condition, quality, view, and other characteristics that may affect value. The fact that you may be using an appraisal reporting format that does not require those adjustments to be made on the report form still requires that you perform that analysis, and you must take a reasonable effort to try to verify each of these characteristics in making your analysis between the comparable sales and the subject property. So an overview. 1. Any appraisal completed by an appraiser must comply with the appraiser's licensing laws, which usually require the appraisal to comply to USPAP Standard 1 and 2. 2. The scope of work for the assignment may affect what is completed by the appraisal and affect the time it will take to perform the appraisal. However, the appraiser has the responsibility to ensure that the scope is not so limited that it will affect the appraisal results and violate USPAP Standards 1 and 2. There are some elements that must be completed regardless of what the client is asking for. There are only 2 reporting options under the current version of USPAP. An appraisal report that requires you to at least summarize your conclusions, and a restricted appraisal which requires certain elements to be stated within the report along with the appropriate certifications are the 2 options currently available. While USPAP provides broad latitude in developing the scope of work, it can result in misleading appraisal results if you're not careful. For example, USPAP does not require the appraiser to inspect the subject property or the comparable sales, but the appraiser must sign a certification and disclose the nature of the inspection that has taken place. The appraiser is required to develop a scope of work that outlines for the client the elements that were and were not completed in developing the appraisal with certain minimum standards required. In conclusion, the time it takes to perform an appraisal is tied to the complexity of the assignment, the availability of the data, the time it takes to properly collect, analyze, and report that data to develop a credible assignment results. Not all properties lend themselves to this type of desktop or bifurcated appraisal. The fee dictated by the assignment, not the other way around. No state investigator cares how much you were paid if the appraisal is deficient. I hope this video has been useful in helping you to determine if you're going to do the desktop or bifurcated appraisals. There's certainly a place in the market for them, but if you're going to do them, you need to make sure that you remember completing the appraisal is more than filling out the form, and it may take longer to perform these assignments than many of your clients think they will. All the best. Thank you.